Minwei Chi Nan. Chapter 193. Reunion. As early as that year, when he met the young man who looked similar to him in the capital, Mian imagined that he would meet the family of the body's original owner in the future. Therefore, he was not surprised or excited at this time. It was even more impossible to say exactly how he felt about Qin Wenkei. He was very calm. The left side of my waist side does have a mole. As for whether there is on the right shoulder, I don't know. Qin Wenkei almost blurted out, I can take a quick look, but although the other party was a man, he also had the identity of the lady of the state defender Duke. Therefore, Qin Wenkei could not be sudden and brusque. There must be. You look so much like me, and you happen to have a mole on your left waist. These 2 points alone are enough justification. Qin Wenkei's tone was firm. His eyes glistened with moisture as they fell on Qin Mian, reluctant to part. Qin Mian was a little uncomfortable that he frowned. After Qin Wenkei's real son died, he just happened to occupy his body. It was somewhat impossible to have him genuinely and sincerely accept Qin Wenkei as a father. First of all, he wouldn't take advantage of a dead man and enjoy something that didn't really belong to him. Second, he couldn't call a stranger his father. Third, he was selfish like LIAN. He didn't want to get involved in another complicated household. Back then, the young man mostly doubted his identity but did not take the initiative to recognize him. It could be seen that he was not wholly welcome at the Qin family. The situation in the Qin family must be very complicated. Qin Wenkei sighed, you haven't taken the initiative to go home since you've been in the capital for so long. I guess that you most probably don't have the memory of the past. Sure enough, you. Qin Mian interrupted him in polite and estranged manner, Imperial Dr. Qin, it'd be better to wait until we arrive at the Western Pass to talk about it. How about it? He had to ask LIAN if he had a mole on his right shoulder before he could formulate a plan. Qin Wenkei was 9 out of 10 sure that he was indeed his son. Half of the load on his mind had been laid to rest. In a good mood, he nodded, all right, all right. A few days later, the group arrived at Zhongyan City, Western Pass near noon. There was no snow in Zhongyan City, but the climate here was much worse than that in the capital. The cold and dry wind blowing on the face was as sharp as blades. The faces of the pedestrians on the road were all red with cold. As long as the face, neck, hands, and ankles were not covered, the cold wind would fiercely hit them and would chill them to the bone. Qin Mian originally thought that because of the war, the doors of the houses and shops in the city would be tightly closed and the city would appear cold and desolate. When he entered the city, he found that it was still bustling. The flames of war at the border station seemed to have no impact on them. On the roadside, stalls sold various snacks. Steaming smoke came from the woks and flew away with the wind, carrying the smell of steamed stuffed bun, sesame seed pancake, baked sweet potato, and other food, which made one's mouth salivated and body felt warm. The shop assistants wore felt hats and thick cotton padded jackets and tightly tied their waists with either a rice straw or cloth strips. With their hands in their sleeves, they opened their mouths wide and shouted out, exhaling clouds of white steam. Steamed stuffed buns, hot steamed stuffed buns. Sweet and fragrant roasted sweet potatoes. I'm sure you'll want a second after one taste. Beef noodle, it's delicious and spicy. A bowl can keep you full until night. Qin Wenkei praised, thanks to State Defender Grand General, who is brave and skillful in warfare. Under his strict control, the common people can live and work in peace and contentment as before. Proud, Qin Mian modestly smiled, Imperial Dr. Qin overpraised. The leader of the escort rode to the side of the carriage and politely said, Qin Darren and Imperial Dr. Qin, please bear it for a while. We'll go directly to the military camp. Along the way, Qin Mian never complained, let alone made things hard for them. Moreover, he gave them fermented tofu to be mixed with their rations. The whole escort team had a very good impression of Qin Mian. Qin Mian knew that these people also needed to report to their superiors after accomplishing a task, so he would not make things hard for them. He nodded, All right, thank you for your hard work. The procession went straight to the gate of the western city wall. When the passers-by saw that they were soldiers, they consciously retreated to both sides of the street to make way for them. Zhongyan City now had two military camps, one outside the city and the other inside. According to the victory report sent back to the capital, the army at the border station had penetrated the territory of Toluo for nearly 50 li, defeated 200,000 troops of Toluo and conquered 4 big cities of the enemy country. Currently, the two armies were in a standoff at Toluo's strategic pass and might launch an all-out attack at any time. The camp in the city was now especially used to house the poisoned soldiers. Because of the tension of the war, LIAN needed manpower. Apart from 6 military doctors, LIAN only arranged 100 soldiers to help the military doctors take care of the wounded. After the leader of the escort showed his token to the charge hand of the camp, the charge hand immediately sent 2 people to the camp outside the city to report to the State Defender Grand General LIAN. Although Mian was eager to see LIAN, it was important to treat the poisoned soldiers. He sat down with Imperial Dr. Qin for a while, drank a cup of hot tea, and then went to see the soldiers. More than 10,000 people were huddled in over 20 tents, critically ill with little breath. No matter who saw it, one could not help feeling down. Fortunately, although the soldiers could not move, their complexions looked better. The pill Mian gave to LIAN had a remarkable effect. Surprisingly, every time the battle drum was heard in the distance, all the soldiers were anxious and wanted to get up immediately to join the battle. However, their physical conditions didn't allow them. They fell into morbid depression, more or less. When they learned that Qin Wenkai was the imperial doctor who specially treated the emperor, everyone's eyes lit up. Mian was young. Although he came to treat them specifically, no one cared about him. Imperial Dr. Qin, in your opinion, what kind of poison is it? Dr. Yu was one of the military doctors who stayed in the camp in the city. He looked tired because of long working hours, but the city was short on manpower, so he had to endure it. Mian carefully observed the symptoms of the poisoned person. The face was pale, the lips were blackened and the skin was blue and slightly swollen with bulging blood blisters. The poisoned person mainly felt fatigued and had a slow reaction. Another military doctor, holding his sore shoulder, said, "A few days ago, the Grand General found a miracle working doctor who successfully suppressed their poisoning. Since taking the medicine, no one's skin has festered and no one got infected further. It's a pity that the miracle working doctor has an eccentric nature. He just disappeared after half a day in the camp." Qin Wenkai inquiringly looked at Mian. Although Emperor Xiaowei didn't say it clearly, Mian was in the leading position when they came to the Western Pass this time. He was just supposed to assist Mian. Mian knew that he was too young to be convincing. However, he didn't care, so he nodded to Qin Wenkai. Qin Wenkai said, "No wonder this old fellow noticed that these people's complexions are not bad. The symptoms are actually very similar. Let this old fellow takes the pulse first." He didn't mind and knelt on one knee at the edge of the sickbed, picked up the wrist of the wounded, and closed his eyes for nearly half a moment. He felt the pulse for several other people nearby and it took a long time for him to feel the pulse every time. The soldiers nearby nervously watched him, praying in secret that the imperial doctor could cure them and let them return to the battlefield. Imperial Dr. Qin said, "If this old fellow's diagnosis is correct, they were inflicted with a kind of strange poison called having life by the people of Toluo. This old fellow would like to ask you, do the poisoned people feel that there is an invisible monster sucking their blood in the body at first, until the body gradually becomes cold?" Dr. Yu was overjoyed. Exactly, Imperial Dr. Qin is worthy of being the descendant of the renowned medical family. Since Imperial Dr. Qin knew of this poison, there must be a way to detoxify it. Several other military doctors gathered around in pleasant surprise. Imperial Dr. Qin was very prudent. Instead of making a statement immediately, he said to Mian, "Qin Daran, please have a try." Mian was too young. The several military doctors looked at him with disapproval as he felt the pulse of a few soldiers. Qin Mian stood up and said, "I don't know the name of this poison, but I know how to detoxify it. I'll write a prescription first and Imperial Dr. Qin can check it if it's feasible." Dr. Yu opened his mouth to speak but was stopped by Qin Wenkei. "All right." Dr. Yu gave up the idea of objecting to it. If Qin Mian and Qin Wenkei put people to death, it didn't have much to do with him. Since Qin Wenkei wouldn't let him comment, why should he get into trouble? On the desk at the side, there were writing materials. The medical assistant cleverly ran over to polish the ink. Qin Mian picked up the brush and wrote down a prescription and handed it to Qin Wenkei. Several military doctors came to see that there were more than 20 herbs in the prescription, one of which was cow urine. This. Qin Wenkei's expression did not change as he slightly nodded. Cow urine can cure dropsy and abdominal swelling. It's suitable to use for this disease. It's once recorded in the 1,000 golden prescriptions of Huainan dynasty. Several military doctors had nothing to say. Imperial Dr. Qin was born in a medical family. It was said that the Qin family had seen to the medical needs of the emperors for 8 generations. They had the foundation of profound learning inherited by the family. It was not uncommon for them to have the 1,000 golden prescriptions and other medical books that others only heard of but could not see. Qin Wenkei looked at Qin Mian with approval. He went to the table and also wrote a prescription. "Qin Daren, please take a look at it. This old fellow thinks it would work faster. Unfortunately, one of the herbs chaste tree grows only in Toluo and is rarely used in Great Xia." After Qin Mian read it, he looked around with a hesitant look. Qin Wenkei felt odd, this old fellow tells all there is to say. It's fine if Qin Daren has something to say. Qin Mian still motioned him and several military doctors to go to the corner, out of the soldiers' hearing. If the prescription of Imperial Dr. Qin is aimed at having life, I can say for sure that the poison in them is not the having life. If Imperial Dr. Qin really used chaste tree, the body and spirit of the patients would indeed recover from the symptoms within an hour. However, after an hour, they will be poisoned to death. What? The military doctors were shocked. Qin Wenkei couldn't believe it. You mean? Qin Mian said, this poison is obviously a tampered having life. If we really use the chaste tree, we'll fall into the enemy's trick. Outside the tent, the resounding voices of the guards echoed. Greetings, Grand General. Qin Mian's heart pounded, he turned to look at the tent's opening. The curtain of the opening was lifted. LIAN strode and dressed in a combat armor and his deep eyes fell gently on Qin Mian's face. End chapter. Minwei Qinan. Chapter 194. Detoxification. Greetings, State Defender Grand General, saluted Qin Wenkei and the several military doctors. Don't stand on ceremony. Qin Mian took out Emperor Xiaowai's designated document for his special case military inspector position and handed it to LIAN with teasing in his eyes. State Defender Grand General, this is this lowly official's proof of document. LIAN looked at the official document and slightly nodded. Standing opposite him, he spoke in a business tone, Qin Daren, how are the soldiers? Qin Mian talked of his and Qin Wenkei's judgments separately. Dr. Yu said, Grand General, the problem now is that both opinions of Qin Daren and Imperial Dr. Qin are not unified. You see. LIAN said, in a few days, this general will launch an all-out attack on Toluo. If this 10,000 soldiers can recover at the time, it will for the best and it will boost the others' morale. Therefore, this general can only give both of you 2 days at most. Qin Mian and Qin Wenkei looked at each other. When all said and done, Qin Wenkei had decades of experience. After a little meditation, he came up with a method and said to Qin Mian, Qin Daren, what do you think of this? This old fellow will make the having life poison. After the poison is made, feed it to the animals. Then, try to detoxify with my prescription to see if it is effective. That way, we don't have to risk the soldiers' lives. Qin Mian nodded. Imperial Dr. Qin has a point. Let's do as you say. Several military doctors had no objection. Right now, no one else knew how to detoxify the poison. They could only do it that way. LIAN said to the 6 military doctors, you have to work hard for a few more days. When this matter is over, this general will personally present the memorial to the emperor so that everyone will be rewarded for your contributions. The military doctors were overjoyed and said in unison, yes, thank you, Grand General. LIAN assigned several soldiers to Qin Wenke to do some errand work. He gave Qin Mian a meaningful glance, and they left the army tent together. The leader of the escort, who had been waiting outside, saw that LIAN had finished his important work. He then came forward to salute and reported on the completion of the task. You've worked hard. Someone, lead the escorts to have a rest. Yes. Lei Qinzhong quickly stepped forward. Qin Mian stopped Lei Qinzhong and said, there are some special local products in the carriage. You give some to the escorts and treat them well. Yes, my lady. After the leader of the escort cupped his hands in respect to Qin Mian and LIAN and asked to be excused, he followed Lei Qinzhong to leave. LIAN pulled Qin Mian to another smaller tent. Qin Mian had yet come to a stop when his mouth was sealed by hot lips. He raised his arms and wrapped them around his man's neck as he responded with equal fervor. A good while later, the couple separated, both of them were out breath. A wisp of silver thread attached to their lips, reluctant to part. Qin Mian's pulse sped up even more and he quickly extended his hand to wipe it off. His ear roots were red like they were on fire. LIAN tightly hugged him and pinched his earlobe with his 2 fingers. Wife, was all well during the trip? It went well. What about you? You're not hurt, are you? Qin Mian's eyes were on him. LIAN shook his head. Did the emperor say how long you can stay here? He didn't say. So, I can stay as long as I want, right? If you can get rid of the Toluo before New Year, we can go back together, said Qin Mian with an expectant look. LIAN nodded without hesitation. Is there a final verdict about the first prince? Asked Qin Mian. LIAN said, just received the emperor's secret order the day before yesterday. To prevent agitations within the army, the first prince is in house arrest for the time being. Thinking of the first prince, Qin Mian said with disdain, you must tell people to watch him closely. Don't let anything happen at this border station and delay our return. Don't worry. LIAN touched his stomach. Have you eaten yet? We came straight to the camp as soon as we enter the city. Qin Mian leaned on his chest. Don't you know? Imperial Dr. Qin and I were in the same carriage all the way, it's not convenient to sneak eating anything. LIAN chuckled, it's been hard on you. I've sent someone to prepare the meal. I'll accompany you for a bit. You aren't in a hurry to go out of the city? Asked Qin Mian happily. LIAN stroked his face. I still have time to accompany you to eat. The couple ate a simple hot pot in the tent. Then, LIAN rushed out of the city and went back to the camp in the territory of Toluo. Qin Mian was also busy. He asked people to prepare all the herbs on the prescription and then helped Dr. Yu and the others to take care of the patients. In addition to Qin Mian and Qin Wenke, there were only 8 doctors in the camp. There would not be enough hands to detoxify more than 10,000 people later. Qin Mian simply paid a sum of money in advance and hired 20 doctors and 100 medical assistants from every medical shop in Zhongin City as soon as possible. Qin Wenke told people to prepare all the medicinal materials he needed. He ate a hot meal and slept for 2 hours. After he had enough spirit, he stayed in a small tent to concoct having life poison. No one was allowed to disturb him. Nearly 2 hours after dark, he came out of the tent and asked people to call Qin Mian. After hearing the news, the 6 military doctors and the charge hand of the camp came over together. Qin Wenke pointed to a red-brown soup in a white porcelain bowl and said, this is having life. The final having life is a powder, but because it will be fed to the animal later, this old fellow omitted the last procedure. It won't affect the poisonous attribute. Then let's try it. Dr. Yu asked a soldier to grab a living rabbit from the kitchen. Qin Wenkai also brought his cure, which was also like soup. Everyone in the tent could not help holding their breath. Qin Wenkai motioned to the soldier. The soldier carried the rabbit and opened its mouth. The medical assistant scooped up a spoonful of poison and poured it carefully into the rabbit's mouth. After all, the rabbit was much smaller than a human, so it didn't need to drink much. The soldier slowly put the rabbit on the ground. In a moment, the rabbit limped and fell to the ground. Qin Wenkai immediately ordered, detoxification. The medical assistant gave the rabbit another mouthful of the cure. After taking the cure, the rabbit gradually recovered its vitality. Nearly an hour later, its vitality greatly recovered. It jumped happily in the tent. Unexpectedly, about an hour later, it fell on the ground without warning. Its 7 orifices bled as it lay motionless. Dead. Qin Wenkai took a breath of cold air. He gratefully pulled a smile to Qin Mian. It was fortunate that they have Qin Mian here, otherwise, the lives of more than 10,000 soldiers would end in his hands. The 6 military doctors were stunned. With this, they were now completely convinced of Qin Mian. Qin Daran, I admire you. You all speak highly of me. Qin Mian seriously said, I've instructed people to prepare the medicines needed for detoxification. This matter shouldn't be delayed. We'll immediately have the hired people from outside detoxify all the soldiers. Yes. Qin Mian told the charge hand, take this news to the State Defender Grand General at once, also, send people to closely monitor the place where the medicine is decocted, in case the villain takes the opportunity to make trouble again. Yes. The charge hand took the order accordingly and left. Qin Mian was a little uneasy. Hiding in the dark, he personally monitored the people concocting the medicine in hundreds of large pots, and when people were not paying attention, he dripped a drop of spiritual spring water in each pot to help the soldiers recover their vitality and physical strength faster. After the medicine was ready, he sent all the doctors and the medical assistants to feed the soldiers the medicinal soup. When the hustle and bustle were over, it was already midnight. Early the next morning, Qin Mian was awakened by the excited shouts outside the tent. When he went out to have a look, more than 10,000 soldiers gathered on the drill ground. On the appointing platform, stood a general with a smiling face. He was talking. Qin Wenkai came over and said with a smile, just wake up. All the soldiers are recovering very quickly. They can go to the battlefield in 2 days. The State Defender Grand General sent a message, yourself, this old fellow, and the other 6 military doctors are going to have a good rest today and move to the camp outside the city to help tomorrow morning. Dr. Yu and the others came over and were very warm to Qin Mian. At last we can relax. Qin Daran and Imperial Dr. Qin, we'd like to treat you to lunch as a welcome ceremony. Wonder if you two can let us have the honor. Qin Mian had planned to go to the military camp outside the city after breakfast. Upon seeing that some of them wanted to make friends, it was hard to refuse. All right, this one will look forward to your treat. After the 6 military doctors left, Qin Mian and Qin Wenkai wrote a letter on the detoxification together and then had the soldier rush to the capital. At noon, Qin Mian had a meal with Qin Wenkai and the 6 military doctors in a winehouse in the city. Qin Mian simply packed up and asked someone in the camp to send a soldier to lead him to the camp outside the city. When Qin Wenkai learned about it, he offered to come along. Qin Mian surmised that Qin Wenkai was anxious to know whether there was a mole on his shoulder, so he didn't refuse. He informed the 6 military doctors that they were going ahead first. At the gate of the city wall, once the emperor's jade seal was uncovered to the guards of the city walls as the official proof, they immediately opened the gate. The carriage traveled for less than an hour when Qin Mian saw mushroom-like military tents in the distance from the window. A smile rose on his lips. Qin Wenkei knew that he must be thinking of Lei Tie. He was quite uncomfortable about his son being with another man. But at present, Qin Mian have yet to admit that he was his son. He couldn't say anything about it and could only sigh in his heart. As they got closer, they saw more tents. In front of the camp, there was a fence made of sharp wooden poles with a gate in the middle. 4 soldiers stood on both sides and stopped them with pikes. "Who's coming?" Once again, Qin Mian showed his proof of document and surmised that Lei Tie had briefed them before one of the soldiers took him to a military tent in the middle of the mushroom cluster with a friendly air. There were 4 soldiers in front of the military tent. "Qin Daran, this is the Grand General's tent, make yourself at home. Imperial Dr. Qin, your tent is this way, please." Qin Mian entered the military tent. There was a long table in the middle with a huge sand table on it and 10 high-backed chairs beside it. Most probably, this military tent also served as a place for strategy meetings. On each side of the long table was a charcoal brazier, in which there was no ember. A bed was placed in the tent, which was, to be exact, a makeshift bed. It was covered with soft hides and a quilt, but in a somewhat messy manner. It looked like the owner left in a hurry. Qin Mian asked 2 soldiers to help move the contents of the carriage into the tent and then gave them some fermented tofu. As soon as the 2 soldiers went out, he lay down lazily on the makeshift bed and could keenly smell the unique cool scent of Lei Tie on the quilt. At this time, Lei Tie must be on duty. He could only wait for Lei Tie to come back. When Lei Tie returned to the military tent after he was done with his duty, he saw a man lying sideways in the quilt, sleeping with a pillow in his arms, and his lips were slightly open with saliva at the corner of the lips. He gently walked over, put his hands on both sides of his wife's body, bent down, and sealed his lips. "Oh, Qin Mian didn't have to open his eyes to know who he was. He hugged the man's shoulders and intently responded. They both moved with passion. At this time, the sound of Qin Wenkei's voice asking the guard outside the tent was heard. "Is the State Defender Grand General here?" Qin Mian quickly pushed Lei Tie away and expressed to him in simple language that Qin Wenkei had made assumptions about Qin Mian's identity. Lei Tie frowned and didn't speak. Qin Wenkei said in a loud voice, "Grand General, this old fellow Qin Wenkei seeks an audience." Qin Mian and Lei Tie stood up and helped each other tidy up. Qin Mian licked his lips. There should be no suspicious traces on his lips. He nodded to Lei Tie. Only then Lei Tie said, "Come in." They sat down at the long table. Qin Wenkei looked at Qin Mian and Lei Tie. "Grand General, pardon this old fellow for being bold. Regarding this old fellow's guess about your wife's identity, your wife must have mentioned it to you." Lei Tie dully nodded. Qin Wenkei nervously asked, then, ventured to ask Grand General, "Does your wife have a mole behind his right shoulder?" Lei Tie didn't respond. After a while, he nodded. Excited, Qin Wenkei abruptly stood up and the chair fell to the ground. He stared at Qin Mian with tears in his eyes. "I knew you must be my son. Mian. Please calm down." Qin Mian helped him sit down and calmly said, "Although we can be sure that I'm your son now, as you are aware, I don't remember anything before I appeared in Green Mountain Village. So, I hope you can give me some time." End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 195. Final Battle. This, Qin Wenkei looked at him with disappointment. He thought a bit and changed the topic. "Fine. You should know that your mother also misses you so much. When we go back, your father will take you." Lei Tie suddenly stood up and coldly said, "Imperial Dr. Qin, my wife said to give him time." Qin Wenkei also got really angry and said in a heavy tone, "Grand General. This matter is between us, father and son. You don't have the qualifica." Imperial Dr. Qin. Qin Mian interrupted his unreasonable words. He defensively embraced Lei Tie's waist. Lei Tie is my spouse. Whatever happens to me, he is qualified to get involved. Qin Wenke looked at him with a wounded expression. He stretched out his right hand, wanting to touch Qin Mian. Mianer, your father just. Lei Tie pressed on Qin Mian's shoulders to let him sit down. He coldly looked at Qin Wenke. Imperial Dr. Qin, have you thoroughly investigated why your son was stranded outside back then? 4 years ago, this general and my wife met a young man in the capital who looked so much alike my wife. By the man's look, he obviously recognized my wife, and yet he did not acknowledge my wife. If one said that there is no reason for this general won't believe it. Presumably, your Qin family isn't peaceful? You think this general is going to let my wife get involved in your Qin family's issues? What? Qin Wenke's expression abruptly changed and changed again as he calmed down, a young man who looked similar to Mian. Besides Mian, this old man also has 2 sons named Qin Jian and Qin Shui. Jian is older than Mian and Shui is the youngest. May I know if the young man you saw is older or younger than Mian? Back then, the young man was obviously a few years older than Qin Mian. He was most likely Qin Jian. Qin Mian didn't want Qin Wenke to blame him for trying to provoke Qin Wenke's relationship with his 2 other sons, so he said, I didn't pay attention. Lei Tie indifferently said, these are the problems that Imperial Dr. Qin should find out. Qin Wenke was unable to respond and secretly regretted it. He should not say that Lei Tie was not qualified to get involved in Qin Mian's affairs. He was uncomfortable with the fact that the son he pampered since childhood was together with a man, but he should not show this kind of discontented expression. Qin Mian had no memory of the past and many years' worth of feelings with Lei Tie. They even raised sons together. It was only natural for Qin Mian to stand on Lei Tie's side. He stood up and bowed with hands held in front as he apologized to Lei Tie in a frank and straightforward manner. Grand General, this old man have just recovered my son. In a moment of excitement, my speech has become inappropriate. Still, this old man have to ask Grand General not to be offended considering the 10 years I've lost a son. This general hasn't seen my wife for a long time, there's a lot to say. Qin Wenke tactfully asked to be excused. Qin Mian rested on Lei Tie's shoulder and kissed that cold wooden face. Lei Tie put his arms around him, picked him up and pressed him. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The night sky spread its curtain, the silent stars twinkled. Thousands of bonfires were lit in the camp, the flames swayed within the gale. In the morning, a large wok hung above the bonfire. The smell of steamed bread floated over the whole camp. In a heavy pot, meaty bones, meat cubes, cabbage, radish, and potatoes churned inside. The seductive aroma was mouth-watering. In Lei Tie's military tent, Qin Mian was sound asleep with a pillow in his arms. Wife, wife. Qin Mian immediately woke up and sat up so suddenly that the quilt slipped off his shoulder. Going to battle. Lei Tie pulled up the cotton-padded quilt to wrap him in and softly kissed him on the lips. Not yet. I need you to add some spiritual spring water into all the pots. When the soldiers have enough food and drink, I'll immediately launch an all-out attack on Toluo. Qin Mian nodded and put clothes on his body. At the side, Lei Tie picked up the underwear and socks and helped him put them on. Noticing that his wife's feet sensitively shrunk away, he could not help but bow his head and kiss that big toe. Qin Mian stared wide-eyed at him and quickly retracted his feet. I'll wear it myself. After getting dressed, he took out half a bucket of spiritual spring water from the magical space, mixed it with half a bucket of water, and then poured a large packet of seasonings into it. He stirred the mixture evenly using his vital spirit before carrying the wooden bucket out of the tent and had someone get the camp charge hand to call the meal chief. Chief Chen, you must have heard of Double Xiang House. This is our homemade 18-flavored seasoning. You help me add a spoonful to each soup pot so that all the soldiers can eat to their heart's content and have more energy to attack the enemy. Since a major poisoning case occurred in the camp, the people in the meal department had become very cautious. As the person in charge of the meal department, Chief Chen was even more cautious. He politely smiled and glanced at Lei Tie in an inquiring manner. Upon seeing Lei Tie nodded, he took the bucket with gratefulness and cheerfully said, "Thank you, Qin Darren. This lowly one will do it at once." "So many campfires." Qin Mian hinted at Lei Tie. Lei Tie said, "Don't worry, I used an illusion to cover it." Qin Mian nodded and followed Chief Chen. The soldiers soon learned that the seasoning Chief Chen brought came from the countrywide famous Double Siang house. They were both delighted and excited. In order not to attract the enemy's attention, everyone was rationally restrained and did not dare to make a cheer. The bucket of seasoning was properly distributed to each soup pot. When the pot was stirred with a large ladle, the aroma of the broth smelled more fragrant and richer as it wafted over the camp. Many people swallowed their saliva. Outside the camp, the soldiers on guard duty had drool steadily flowed out, but they did not dare to act rashly because they were on duty. Deputy General Liu walked over with a small squadron of 10 and a smile on his face. "Everyone doesn't have to worry. The Grand General has specially ordered this general to deliver a message saying that he left you a few big pots of food with more meat in it." Smiles of expectation appeared on the faces of the soldiers on guard duty. "Thank you, Deputy General Liu." Deputy General Liu inspected the outside of the camp and brought the words of the Grand General to every soldier on guard. When the meaty bone stew in the pot was nicely cooked, everyone began to eat. While on the battlefield, Lei Tie had always eaten with the soldiers and this time was no exception. He sat around the soup pot with a dozen other soldiers. One scooped up a large serving of food and soup into the bowl, took a bite of a thick steamed bun and a bite of meat, and then drank a mouthful of soup. One's stomach would be full at once. Or, one could tear the steamed bun into pieces and soaked in the soup. It was also very tasty. Qin Mian sat on the ground next to Lei Tie, holding a big bowl. This was the first time he had a meal with hundreds of thousands of people. He couldn't help but look around, committing the novelty feelings to memory. Lei Tie scooped up the food with the ladle for him and rubbed his head. The intimate action, gentle expression, and doting gaze made the nearby soldiers secretly exhaled. They must have misinterpreted it. How could that kind of expression appear on the face of their grim-faced Grand General? Qin Mian turned his head and focused on eating. The meaty bones were simmered long enough that the overcooked meat could completely detach from the bones by gently scraping it with chopsticks. When one put the meat in one's mouth and chewed while savoring it, it was extremely delicious. Everyone ate very fast. Qin Mian couldn't help but speed up as well. Lei Tie finished eating first and hurriedly left after leaving Qin Mian with a sentence, "I'm going ahead." After the rest of the soldiers quickly finished their meal, they put the bowls and chopsticks on the ground, swiftly sprang up, and gathered on the simple drill ground next to the military camp without a word. In a short while, only Qin Mian, Qin Wenkei, the mess cooks, and over 200 military doctors with their medical assistants were left in the vicinity. The military doctors also did not eat slowly. After filling their stomachs, they picked up their medicine boxes and hurried to the drill ground. Qin Mian and Qin Wenkei quickly followed. In contrast, the mess cooks didn't have anything to be anxious about. After eating, each took 2 big baskets, picked up the tableware and chopsticks on the ground, and cleaned up the camp in an orderly manner. After the tens of thousands of soldiers were assembled, they sneaked into the enemy's camp in the dim light of the night, preparing for a night attack. The military doctors followed behind, neither close nor far. About an hour later, from the front direction came a strong smell of blood. About 3/4 later, sky-shaking war drums and high-pitched marching voices rose steeply from the ground. The torches were also lit. The soldiers of Great Xia flooded into the camp of Toluo like a turbulent tide. Forward! Attack! At this time, the military doctors quickly chased up and rushed to the fallen soldiers. By the light of the torches, they judged whether the soldiers were dead, then inspected the wounds on the wounded soldiers, skillfully stopped the bleeding, applied medicine, and bandaged them. The fallen soldiers were either seriously injured or killed in action, otherwise, they would not easily topple over. Mian used his vital spirit to shield against the strong fishy smell. He treated the wounded soldiers with an extremely fast movement. He sprinkled medicinal powder and bandaged, sprinkled medicinal powder and bandaged. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Dr. Yu squatted beside a wounded soldier. He wiped the sweat from his face and looked left and right. Qin Darren and Imperial Dr. Qin, you know, every time we went to the battlefield previously, we could only helplessly watch the soldiers fall one after another and feel very unbearable. Today, there are fewer wounded soldiers than before. Only Qin Mian who was present understood that it was the spiritual spring water that had made the soldiers stronger, their 5 senses sharper than ever, and naturally they were much quicker to dodge the enemy attacks. Speaking of which, both Qin Darren and Imperial Dr. Qin are surnamed Qin. Another military doctor curiously asked, "Are you relatives?" Qin Wenke opened his mouth but said nothing. Qin Mian dully smiled, "It's just a coincidence." He stayed away from other military doctors without a trace and sealed the meridians of the wounded soldiers with his vital spirit when no one paid attention. This method was much faster to stop the bleeding. Dong 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 dong. The pounding of the war drum was intermittently high and low, intermittently swift and slow, but continued to sound. The shouts at battle in front were like waves coming after another. Over time, the military doctors gradually became tired and no longer had the energy to talk. Their hands repeated the actions of treating wounds over and over again as if they had their own consciousness. Qin Mian fished out a bottle of pill from his inner pocket and took out a pill. He gave it to the medical assistant under him. "Dissolve this pill with 3 pots of boiling water and give all the military doctors and medical assistants a cup." Dr. Yu curiously asked, "Qin Darren, what is that?" Qin Mian explained, "It's a pill that I made myself. It can rejuvenate one's spirit and energize the body. Because the effect is too strong, it needs to be diluted with more water." End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 196. Return in Triumph. I see. No one harbored suspicion. Qin Mian's ability to detoxify more than 10,000 poisoned soldiers had proved his skill. After the medical assistant brought the medicinal soup, everyone had a drink. Sure enough, their spirit and physical strength recovered a lot. They gave Qin Mian a grateful smile and after thanking him, they continued to be busy. The whitish color of a fish's belly appeared in the east. It's almost dawn. The war drums of Great Xia sounded more intense, influenced by the zealous drumbeat. The soldiers launched even fiercer attacks. After the period of 2 incense sticks burnout, a strange horn suddenly sounded on the ground. The tune was also very strange, from high to low until it was almost inaudible. Qin Wenke, Dr. Yu, and the others were shocked. Their eyes were filled with profound surprises. Not understanding, Qin Mian asked, "What's the matter?" "Sir, Toluo army has surrendered." "That's great. If things are concluded fast enough, I can go back to celebrate the new year. Finally, I can go home." An hour later, the exact news came back from the front. LIAN led his 6 valiant generals to capture alive the enemy's 3 commanding generals. They were Lu Manhui, the 3rd prince of Toluo, Sheng Sihao, a valiant general of Toluo, and Yin Xiangzhao, the valiant general and concurrently the military advisor of the Toluo army who came up with the evil idea of poisoning the soldiers of Great Xia. Then, the campsite was relocated. 5,000 soldiers were sent back from the front to help the military doctors arrange the wounded soldiers and to dispose of the dead soldiers' bodies. Qin Mian and the other military doctors stayed in the new tent to take care of the wounded soldiers. As if the heavens wanted to congratulate the compatriots of Great Xia, it began to snow in the afternoon. LIAN had been busy for half a month handling all the military affairs in the military camp. He received the imperial decree of Emperor Xiaowei to withdraw the troops from the front and escort Chen Chuang, Lu Manhui, Sheng Sihao, and Yin Xiangzhao to the capital in the next few days. LIAN told Qin Mian that in this battle, Toluo lost nearly 200,000 soldiers. Besides, Lu Manhui and Yin Xiangzhao were practically equivalent to the right-hand men of the Toluo emperor. Emperor Xiaowei certainly would make good use of this to ask Toluo to cede territory and pay indemnities. Toluo would be sapped of its vitality and would not dare to start a war with Great Xia for at least the next 10 years. The day before departure, it began to snow again. Snowflakes fell like catkins. It added a bit of romance. Qin Mian was packing their luggage in LIAN's army tent. Suddenly, he thought of something and looked at the man sitting at the table and writing on the booklet. Family head, did you forget something? Family head. LIAN's movement paused, thinking that his wife was trying to seduce him. Remembering that the memorial had to be sent out as soon as possible, he refrained from looking up. Catch foals. Qin Mian smiled. Fortunately, you still remember. Otherwise, your sons won't forgive you. When LIAN finished writing the memorial, he ordered someone to rush to the capital to deliver the memorial. He put a cloak on Qin Mian, pulled him out of the tent, and asked people to bring 2 horses. The 2 men then galloped out of the camp. With a clear cry, the golden eagle merely flapped its wings and caught up with them by borrowing the strong wind. It always hovered 2 jong above their heads. It snowed heavily. The willow catkins turned into cotton, drifting profusely and disorderly. After running around for more than an hour, Qin Mian and LIAN went deep into the grassland of Toluo. Herds of wild horses and mountain sheep walked in silence on the grassland, leisurely nibbling the hay on the ground. LIAN's spiritual sense brought the whole grassland into sight as he carefully searched for the healthiest foals. Qin Mian patted off the snow on him and casually said, "It'll be great if we can find a pair of twin horses." The corner of LIAN's mouth twitched. His wife was too frightening when in action that it was hard for him to catch up. Qin Mian laughed and patted him on the shoulder. "Ha ha ha. I'm kidding." LIAN was absorbed in thought. There are many wild horses here. It's not difficult to find 2 identical ones. Right. Qin Mian came to a realization, 2 horses of the same birth actually aren't exactly alike. They galloped forward for a while and saw a herd of wild horses in the distance. The luck of the 2 men was really good. They found 2 very similar foals in that herd of horses. They were not too big. Assuming they were just born no more than 2 or 3 months ago, they were small and adorable. Their pair of watery big eyes were like round and bright glazed stones. Although they had dirt on their bodies, one could still see that the coat all over their bodies was white. They were beautiful and walked with a firm and steady steps. Qin Mian and LIAN looked at each other, pleasantly surprised. Qin Mian cried out, "Great! I'll do it!" LIAN took out 2 ropes from the space. Like a robust person of great power, he flew up straight to the 2 white horses. The golden eagle followed with an itching heart. 1 person and 1 bird together separated the 2 white horses from the herd. Then, LIAN held back with force the nape of the 2 foals in each hand. The 2 foals neighed out in low voices and obediently lay down on the ground to let LIAN put ropes on them. Qin Mian spurred his horse over and chanted out a cleaning mantra. The 2 horses became clean in an instant. The snowy white fur had not a speck of dirt. It was a long way from the western pass to the capital. Qin Mian fed each of the 2 foals a pill to build up their physique and improve their health. They led the foals back to the military camp. Almost everyone in the camp knew that the State Defender Grand General couple had a pair of adorable twin sons. When they saw the 2 foals, they knew who the foals were to be given to. Naturally, the people in charge of the stable dared not to be reckless in taking care of them. That night, the whole camp had a celebration dinner around the bonfires. At daybreak of the next day, LIAN and the few generals first led 5,000 vanguard troops to escort First Prince Chen Chuang and Lu Manhui's group of 3. The rest of the army closely followed behind. The banner embroidered with the word "Lei" fluttered in the front of the procession. Everywhere they went, the ordinary people beat the drums and clanged the gongs, dancing for joy. In order to get back to the capital as soon as possible, Qin Mian and LIAN quietly added spiritual spring water to the soldiers' meals, so all the soldiers were in high spirits along the way. They didn't feel the slightest hardship as they hurried up. Only Chen Chuang, Lu Manhui, Sheng Sahao and Yin Xiang Zhao suffered, not knowing what medicine Qin Mian gave them. They were sapped of strength, and whenever the carriage jolted, they practically vomited several times a day. They lost at least 10 jin of weight in less than 4 days. Along the way, no one tried to save them. It was hateful that LIAN and Qin Mian's martial arts were too good. With the two men, none thought they could successfully escape. With them hurrying, the procession finally entered the capital on the 20th day of the 12th month. Early in the morning, Emperor Xiaowai personally led the Empress, the second prince, the princess, and other important civil and military officials to wait on the city wall. Dongyang Academy had a winter holiday on the 10th day of the 12th month. Naturally, Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan could not miss this important day. They were on the city wall, too. Because Emperor Xiaowai was very fond of the two little boys, they occupied the most conspicuous position. The brothers each wore the same red cotton wadded gown, a winter hat, a scarf around the neck, and gloves. Emperor Xiaowai held one boy in each hand. Dian Bai and Jin Simo Pi were also there. They leaned on the guardrail like humans. Near noon, a group of armored soldiers appeared at the end of the public road in dark masses. Eunuch Li excitedly said, "Your Majesty, they're here. Ah Dai and Lao Dai are back at last." Lei Rulan jumped up and waved a hand to the distance. Emperor Xiaowai jokingly said, "Don't get excited, young lad. They're so far away. Your two fathers can't see you." Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan looked at each other and smiled. Ah Dai and Lao Dai surely can see. Gur, I wonder if Lao Dai will forget to catch the foals for us. Lei Rulan propped up his chin, squeezing the meat on his face together. He was chubby but very cute. Qin Ruki said, "He won't." Princess Duaning curiously asked, "What foals?" With an arrogant look, Qin Ruki said, "Caught from Western barbarian." Lei Rulan explained, "Ah Dai said that he would take our family to hunt when Lao Dai came back. Gurgr and I told Ah Dai that we needed 2 foals, so Ah Dai told us to write to Lao Dai and ask him catch 2 from Western barbarian." The second prince slightly nodded as he said, "The environment in Western barbarian is relatively worse than that in Great Xia. Therefore, the horses in their country are generally stronger than ours." Thinking deeply, Emperor Xiaowai patted Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan on the shoulder. "Hunting? Good idea. Ruki and Rulan, Uncle Emperor will invite you to hunt in the Imperial hunting ground someday." While they talked, LIAN's procession was getting closer and closer. Qin Mian and LIAN's horses were at the top front of the procession, on par with one another. Both Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan happily waved their hands. Qin Mian saw the two children waving, he softly smiled and also waved back. LIAN, still with that poker face, only looked at Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan for a moment. "Lao Dai doesn't wave back," said Lei Rulan with regret. Emperor Xiaohui, the Empress, the second prince and the ministers were unable to restrain their laughter when they imagined LIAN waving his hand. The procession soon arrived outside the city gate. When the soldiers heard the celebration beats of the drums and gongs and crackles of the firecrackers inside the city, their faces displayed smiles of pride. Being the leader of everyone, LIAN dismounted the horse, faced the city wall, and knelt on one knee. "This subject and the others pay respect to your Majesty. Long live your Majesty! Long may you reign!" All the people on the city wall also knelt and shouted, "Long live your Majesty! Long may you reign," with great momentum that rushed straight to the sky. "You may rise." Emperor Xiaowai's hearty laughter was filled with proudness. "Well done, State Defender Grand General. You have lived up to Zhen's trust in you." LIAN said, "Thanking your Majesty's great fortune, luckily your subject and the others didn't dishonor our commission." Emperor Xiaowai brought everyone down from the city wall. When Emperor Xiaowai got on the imperial carriage, LIAN led his subordinates to keep up, The other civil and military ministers followed behind along the cheers of the common folks. Qin Mian, Lei Tie, Qin Wenkei and several other generals went directly into the palace and came to the imperial study to formally report on the completion of their tasks to the emperor. Emperor Zaiwai simply asked about the course of the war with Toluo and how Qin Mian detoxified the poison before excusing them and telling them to have a good rest. In the court session the next day, they could tell the details. When everyone took leave, Emperor Zaiwai only retained Qin Wenkei. Emperor Zaiwai looked at Qin Wenkei from the dais and directly asked, "My dear subject Qin, is the lady of the state defender Duke your son?" Qin Wenkei was stunned. He knelt and replied in truth, "Yes, your majesty. The lady of the state defender Duke is this subject's legitimate son, who had unexpectedly disappeared 10 years ago." At first, when this subject saw the appearance of the lady of the state defender Duke in the imperial study, this subject already had this suspicion. This subject dare not hide it from your majesty that half the reason why this subject was eager to go to the Western Pass was to confirm this. May this subject be bold to ask, how did your majesty know of this? Emperor Zaiwai's tone was meaningful. My dear subject Qin, in addition to the lady of the state defender Duke, you still have another good son ah. Qin Wenkei was puzzled. Suddenly, he felt some uneasiness. Please forgive, this subject is slow-witted. Emperor Zaiwai motioned to eunuch Li to give the information he found to Qin Wenkei. Qin Mian was sent to the Western Pass by Emperor Zaiwai to save the soldiers. The key thing was that someone dared to assassinate him on the way. This was tantamount to opposing Emperor Zaiwai and the imperial authority. Emperor Zaiwai naturally wanted to find out the crux of the matter. Unexpectedly, this investigation actually led to Qin Jian, the eldest son of Qin Wenkei. Emperor Zaiwai had investigated Qin Mian's identity before, but his men only found the information about Qin Mian after he was 14 years old. After interrogating Qin Jian, Emperor Zaiwai realized that Qin Mian was actually Qin Wenkei's legitimate son. End chapter.